And we are live. Hey, welcome to the Regrid webinar series, The Talking Grid, where we sit down with customers, partners, people from the industry and have wonderful conversations about land, parcels, data, and all things GIS. And today I'm super excited to sit down with Abby Smith from Upstream Tech. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Sahana. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time. Upstream Tech is one of our customers, and Abby Smith manages products. One of the products at Upstream Tech called Lens, and we're going to talk about both the company, your product. We'll see a quick little demo. We'll also talk about how the two of us work together, how the two companies have partnered, and what our data, what role our data plays in your product. So that's essentially going to be today's conversation. I have seen demos of Lens before, but I'm super excited to actually get the full walkthrough today. We have some live folks joining us today. So a quick note, please use the chat section or the question section to ask questions or comments. We will answer them as we go, but we will definitely save some time at the end of this conversation to answer any specific questions that you all have for Abby. So yeah, with that, let's get started. So Abby, tell us a little bit about Upstream Tech, what you all do, your products.
Sure, yeah. So my company, Upstream Tech, is a public benefit company that uses remote sensing and machine learning and software-based solutions for environmental decision-making. So we have two products. I'm going to be focusing on one called Lens today, but we also have a product called Hydro Forecast that uses machine learning to forecast stream flow. So overall, we focus on land and water in the climate tech and conservation space.
That's exciting. I want to learn more about Lens and how it helps in monitoring. But if there are a lot of members from Regrid watching this, and renewable and environmental use cases are some of our most favored use cases here at Regrid, and we've often found that a lot of them need parcel data at some level, and we in our discovery we find such incredible use cases in the renewable space. So would love to learn more about Lens and what part of environmental data do you focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lens was created a couple of years ago because we were talking to conservation organizations and environmental folks who were interested in remote sensing and realized that the space is very complex. There's a ton of different data sources. It requires expertise to know how to find them and download them and interact with them. And it just felt like kind of a high barrier to entry for accessing Earth observation data that's going to be so critical in informing decision-making and kind of scaling up environmental conservation. So our goal with Lens was to provide a really easy to use, accessible platform and a one-stop shop for remote sensing data. So we partner with a range of satellite and aerial data providers, kind of like a buyer's club. So we're trying to make it really affordable and easy for organizations at smaller scales to pay for the remote sensing data that they need and know more. And also giving them some tooling around workflows that they use commonly, like reporting and inspecting remote data so that they can conduct their annual monitoring requirements for things like easement monitoring or project planning.
Yeah. So when you say monitoring, we're talking about assessing environmental characteristics of land, so water quality, air quality. So as a result, do you often find the need to aggregate many different data layers into Lens?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So many of our customers are land trusts. That's kind of our bulk of our market right now, and we're expanding in a few ways. But they have a requirement to monitor the easements they're responsible for stewarding on an annual basis. And so to do that, they need to either go on the ground and visit these sites annually or look at them remotely. And remotely, obviously, is going to be a huge cost savings, but The two can also work in parallel. So maybe they
Yeah.
want to do a site visit, but they can only access part of the site on foot. So they can use the remote data to do the rest of the assessment, to check for things like, are there any roads that have been constructed or structures that have been built or illegal timber harvests that were not in the easement terms to begin with. And then for folks that are just beginning with an easement or maybe are starting a restoration project or a development site, they can use remote sensing data to look back in time and see how has land use changed over the last decade, which can inform their future plans and kind of baseline reporting.
So it shows data over time, so people can see data up to a decade backwards.
Yes,
Wow.
exactly.
And do you often find that they do, like, the way you described it is a lot of the site selection can be done through the interface, and then for the actual site assessment and like the physical characteristics is when, they'll probably do it in person.
Right. Yes, exactly. Or maybe they can visit in person, but they're only getting the snapshot of that one season. And for things like changes in water patterns or, fluctuations in vegetation over the course of multiple seasons, Lens can help them contextualize what they're seeing on the ground within that larger picture, because they just couldn't possibly get out to the field that often to collect information.
That's interesting. Can we see a demo?
Sure, absolutely. Let me share my screen. All right. So holler if you cannot see my screen. It looks like it's sharing.
There you go. We can see it
Perfect.
now.
So Lens is a web app, which means you can log in through a browser anywhere. You don't need to download anything to your computer. And once you log in, you'll see this portfolio landing page. And these are just collections of properties or sites that you are monitoring. So I'm going to go into the Northeast portfolio and into the map view, which is really the heart of Lens. So when folks are getting set up in Lens, they will upload their geospatial files. And this interior white line you're seeing here is just what a user has shared with us to upload into Lens. And so we automatically show the most recent high resolution image for your site, and then show a little buffer around just for context, because a lot of changes happen along the perimeters. And we pull in data that's publicly available automatically when you get started. So you can click into this date drop down here and see NAPE imagery going all the way back to 2013 when aerial flights were being flown over this area through NAPE. And then we've also pulled in for this site some Massachusetts aerial ortho imagery. This is also publicly available. It's captured by the state of Massachusetts. So anything that's public, we're trying to make it really easy to access. And this is no cost to Lens users.
Okay.
And then the next step is usually that folks want to access a more recent high resolution image to conduct their monitoring. So to do that, we have this order pane on the left. And from all of our provider partners, we're pulling in data every time that a satellite flies overhead for this site. So the most recent one you're seeing here is from 2 days ago. And you can just see how frequently this site is being captured from different sources. And so usually when you're conducting monitoring, you might want to focus on a certain season. Like people in the Northeast will sometimes want leaf off imagery because it's easier to see things like stream that would be harder if there was forest cover, or if they've heard about a potential violation or they're following up on a change, they can hone in on exactly the timing of when they would want to order imagery. And then when they find one that looks good, this one has some nice fall foliage, they can go in and order that imagery. And this is a per acre, low cents per acre cost. You're only paying for what is within the boundary of your site.
Okay.
And then what we learned is that a lot of our land trust partners, as part of their annual compliance workflow, they also have to check for parcel ownership change, one of their criteria. So we load in parcel data from Regrid as an overlay here. So this is pulling in the latest data from you guys, and we'll dig into this a little bit more in a few minutes. But you can see just on hover the parcel ID, the owner, the address, and this is always up to date. You can zoom out and see it around the edges as well. So That's one step in the monitoring workflow. And then the next step is to start inspecting the imagery for changes. So usually folks will go into compare mode, they'll select 2 different dates, and they'll start scrolling back and forth and starting to see what might have changed between last year and this year, or between their 2 time periods. And once you notice that something has changed, like a new road or a new structure, you would go over here to the notes pane and start annotating that imagery. So here's a couple of examples that I've added. One is a new building that was constructed. This is a really common type of change that we see. Here's an example showing a forest thinning that occurred, and there's a house that was constructed here just north of the site boundary as well. And then obviously the solar farm that was added in the middle, we can see before and after that happened.
Wow.
So this is all meant to be like very easy to interpret and annotate, both for you as an individual monitor or steward, as well as for your teammates. So any of my colleagues can then go into Lens and see Abby made a note. They can click on this and they can see what imagery I was looking at when I made that note and refer back to it or add their own notes. And then the final step is to generate a report. So when you click the report button, it will automatically create this nice PDF, which you can edit and customize. You might want to add some commentary about a conversation with a landowner or any other details summarizing what you might have noticed. You have the property overview page, so you can choose what image you'd like to see here. All very easy to customize. And then each of those observations that you made gets its own page with the metadata and the appended imagery. And again, you can update those and make sure that this looks exactly as you expect. And you can even turn on that parcel data if you want to see that contextualized here. So just trying to take all of the kind of arduous paperwork part of monitoring and make it streamlined and simple and quick so that folks can get back to their conservation work on the ground.
Wow, very impressive. I love how it can, even the report can be customized to such granular details, including showing and comparing to images that captures the change that has happened along with the capture date. It's so granular. It is so easy to use. And I love how our parcel API and tiles are working within Lens. Nothing gives me or any product manager more joy than watching your product being used in a live application. And I love that it's being used in such a fabulous, high performing interface. Abby, congratulations. Lens. I've seen this demo a few times from you before, but this one, along with the report and everything, there's so much value that your customers are receiving from this interface.
Thanks. That's very kind. I think the feelings are mutual. We're really happy to be partnering with you guys. We think that you guys are the best, up-to-date, most comprehensive parcel data available on the market, and we're really proud to be able to display it in Lens and make it part of the monitoring story that we're able to tell for our customers.
Thank you. We appreciate it. That's kudos to our data team that works tirelessly in assembling and curating our data year round. So what are the use cases apart from monitoring? Like, can we talk a little bit about a particular use case that needs all the different data layers and parcel data? And also, what if there are other layers that's not on Lens, and what do customers do then? Because some of these use cases could probably span at least 10 to 15, from hydro to air and a lot of other things that remote sensing typically needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we built Lens to be a pretty flexible platform for using it in a few different ways. In addition to just the ongoing stewardship monitoring workflow, if folks are considering project development and want to explore a site, again, set baselines, look back in time, access remote imagery, they can do that by creating what we call a property in Lens. And then that's it, when you can start interacting with all those different data layers, true color imagery. I didn't show this, but we also do have layers on vegetation vigor, surface water, going back many years. So you can start to see some of those ecological variables as well as just the true color. And then we have derived data layers that we can pull in land use and land cover. We have a few options there. Building footprints is a common one. We have a partnership with Salo Sciences that is doing some forest modeling. So looking at canopy cover, fire risk, canopy, height, things like that.
Yeah.
Just really amazing machine learning derived data layers. And we're working on them with a carbon project now. So depending on your use case, we have a few different sets of layers that we might pull in that could give you a little bit more insight or allow you to do your planning most effectively.
And can your customers also add their own layers if they have collected data, and shapes of different kinds?
Yes, yeah, there are a few different ways to do that. So if they're just shapes, we could add those in as an overlay, similar to the way that you saw the Regrid data as an overlay. We have folks who are pulling in things like state wetlands inventory layers to make sure that they're not developing on a site that has wetlands present. So that can be used in complement with some of our other data layers. And if you have data that you've captured from your own drone flights or aerial data, as long as it's geo-referenced, we can pull that into Lens so that you can see it alongside with all of the other options that we have here. We're trying to really make this an in-house one-stop shop place for all of the information that you might need to make decision-making. So it's all at your fingertips.
Yeah. And definitely, I mean, the data layers and all of that in one interface, the aggregation that's gone behind it, all of this is, faster decision making for your customers. For our own feedback, I'd like to know, apart from the parcel polygons and ownership that you talked about, have you seen any other key attributes from our parcel data set that is of use to your customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest resounding chorus that we're hearing from our customers is just that this is saving them a lot of time. The process of looking for parcel data ownership changes and looking in county records and other vendors that they were working with was just a huge time sink. So what that looked like in the past was sometimes calling landowners to verify whether ownership had changed, but sometimes you can't get a hold of them, or sometimes they forget to mention it. So they wanted a way to verify that. It also looked like going to county websites or tax assessors' records to find the relevant parcel and then confirm ownership. And then there are also some other nationwide parcel data providers, but what we were hearing was that there wasn't, they weren't as standardized. There were often holes in those data sets. And even if there was a data set that they were using, they would have to keep a second shape file of their properties up to date and kind of cross-reference it in another place, as well as in Lens. So it was just taking up a lot of time, and it seemed like a clear win for many of the users, not just land trusts, but really anyone who is doing planning or assessments or baselining on any type of project, to have all of that accessible in one place.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That is great feedback. I mean, the real value of this parcel data set is standardization, but it is very interesting to hear these, on ground stories about having to have an extra shapefile, these very interesting feedback, something we will definitely pass on to our team, many of whom are actually live watching right now. So they're getting this feedback right now. What is next for Lens? I know we talked a little bit when we met last time, but for everyone here right now?
Yeah. Man, that's a tough question. I mean, we're a pretty nimble, small company, so we're adapting to the things that we hear all the time and trying to iterate on our roadmap. Right now, a big focus for us is putting more tools into the hands of users. So users can now go into Lens and add new properties, new portfolios. It's very flexible, which wasn't true 6 months ago. And we're planning to continue to build on that so that folks can go in themselves and add different data layers, different overlays, different types of information that they'd like to see in Lens. And then we've done some work with automating vegetation drop alerts. So we launched a feature at the beginning of the year where, as we pull in data from a satellite called Sentinel-2 that captures data about every 5 days, if there's a divergence from the vegetation levels around the same time last year, it will alert you to say, it looks like there's something going on here. It could be a wildfire. It could be a timber harvest, kind of depends on what you might be worried about on your property. But if you enroll your property in those alerts, you can get notified if there's a big change and then respond proactively. So we're starting to think already about ways that we might build on this alerting functionality with other data layers, or what else that could look like to help save folks time and make sure that they have the information that they need to respond quickly.
Yeah, all that sounds great. We did talk about alerting last time we met, so it sounds exciting. Just the things that has gone into Lens in the past 6 months shows the amount of work that's going behind it. So for everyone here, Abby, how can they reach out to you and your team, and what is the process for them to learn more about or get some access to Lens?
Yeah, if you go to our website, upstream.tech/lens, you can sign up for a demo with some of my colleagues who would be more than happy to walk you through the workflow in Lens, kind of catered to your specific use case or your monitoring needs. And we can go into more depth about all of the different data layers and things that we could pull in depending on what folks are most interested in. So I would say head to our website. We also have a pricing page there, so you can get a sense of our pricing. Lens is a software as a service, so you sign up for access to Lens, and then you pay for imagery as you order it, if you order it. But all of that public data is pulled in for free, so you can get more information on the different features associated with each of our plans there. Yeah, and we're more than happy to answer questions. I mean, I think we are largely in learning mode as well for many of the people who are your customers already at Regrid. Renewables, project developers, we are trying to understand how Lens can fit into their workflows and ways that we might continue to build on it to support that. So we're very curious to learn more and would welcome a conversation.
That sounds great. All right. I think with that, we can start wrapping up, but we would love to see if there are any questions. So while Abby and I chat on some random other things, let's stay on for 2 more minutes. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them right away. All right. So Abby, you have a nice vacation coming up. We always end some of these webinar series with random fun topics. So let's pick binge watching. What have you been watching?
Oh, gosh.
I know there's so much to choose from.
I'm not a huge binge watcher. The one service that we subscribe to is BritBox. I just love BBC content.
Oh, I do too.
There's this one show called Shetland that's like a British crime drama that takes place on the Shetland Islands, it's an interesting show. It's well written. It's based on some Anne Cleeve's novels, but just the landscapes alone are worth the watch. It's like barren and grasslands and sheep and cliffs. It's just gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
I really like Shetland, and the season is all kind of one long, complex crime story.
Oh, I've been wanting to subscribe to BritBox because I'm a big British TV watcher. Like, I love those crime series that they have. I love all the Agatha Christie adaptations that you see. So I've been seeing a lot of advertisements for BritBox, so might as well, get another one of those streamings. Yeah. I think we all have at least 10 right now between Netflix and all the other ones. That sounds like very interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of good nature documentaries on BritBox too. There are like bird ones and there's gardening shows. It's really wholesome.
Oh, okay. There is a question about how you plan the parcels in AutoCAD or automated grids. Hi, Mohammed. Yeah, thank you for your question. We actually get and collect the data, from counties or designated county sources, and then we take it, we curate it, we QA it, and then we weave it into our standardized schema, and then it becomes a part of our data set. So we basically standardize all of the column names so that the data is is the same at scale across the entire country, because what we have noticed is parcel data is disparate and very different from, and it changes variably from one county to the other. So that's really where the host of our work actually goes. Sometimes gathering and collecting the data, as tiresome as it might feel because of the sheer number that we have to deal with. So we are, there are about 3,200 counties in the country. That part, we do. We've sort of mastered that part to quite an extent, and we've been significantly increasing our coverage map. But it's what comes after we gather the data is really where the magic happens, and our data team does most of that weaving. So we've actually designed our own standardized schema. We can put the link here in the chat, and we ensure that all of the data that we do collect, new and the ones that we update every year from counties, we standardize the column names, we weave them into the schema that we actually have designed, so that the data looks pretty much the same anywhere in the country, all under the same field names and attribute names. So if you pick up data at scale, it should, you should be able to query data at scale. Any other questions? If there are, there is contact information for both Regrid and for Upstream Tech here. So thank you, Mohammed, for your question. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us after this webinar if you felt like you had a question that you didn't get a chance to ask for either of us. And if you have any questions for Abby, please send us our way. We will forward them to Abby, and we'll get back to you on those as well. And this webinar, now that it's done, will soon be a video, and it'll be put up on our YouTube and on the Regrid site. And we'll pass that on, and should be on the Upstream Tech channel as well. All right, Abby, this was a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for taking the time and for that lovely demo of Lens. We're excited for all the things that you're doing with the product. We're excited that we could be a part of it, and let's continue working together. We want to make sure that, we give you the best of our data and help you, grow your product further. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
All right. See you all.
Bye, Sahana.
Bye.